Want to introduce myself. Adrian Danila, 22 years in multifamily industry. Out of the 22 years, I did 1 year in single family, so I have a little bit of that too, right? Not on the management side, but on the service side. That 1 year, I work for Lesson. I think some of you in the room might be familiar with who Lesson is, what they do. By show of hands, how many of you here are doing single family? How many of you are doing multifamily? Okay, so looks like it's about a 50-50, and I think we have a mix of those that do both, right? The way I kind of build my presentation was mainly targeting multifamily. Some of the stuff will apply to single family. So I'm gonna make sure to make it very clear when it's stuff that applies to multifamily, because for example, centralization, it's a different deal when you're looking at a single family portfolio versus multifamily institutional. Not all multifamily, because the small multifamily, 20, 30 units here and there, kind of could be operated like single family, and that's the only way you operate it, by centralizing. When you're talking about communities that are 100 units and up, a number of them, the game changes. And it's very interesting. I had several conversations with Paul Rhodes and other facilities leaders in the industry. And it's extremely interesting that on a centralization topic, when we're talking to maintenance leaders, they're saying that institutional level cannot be done right. There's way too many challenges. When I talk to executives, C-suite level, they're extremely convinced that they could make centralization work. It's not about who's right and wrong here, but I'm just saying that very large institutional owners, managers, have been trying this now for like 2-3 years, this trend. They spend millions of dollars, and although it's not like maybe public information, they're pulling back from the centralization model because there's just way too many hurdles to overcome. And I think when they thought about this, they didn't have enough data, or the proper data, or a combination of both to make the proper determinations. How are we gonna make this work? So that was my whole spiel about centralization. We'll return a little bit later for a few seconds. What I learned throughout my career is that the challenge with making our maintenance operations better, I think one of the main challenges is coming from the fact that executive level and asset management looks at maintenance as strictly a cost, right? And we all know what's happened with cost, right? It's getting trimmed down or eliminated, if possible. Now, the way I think we have to try harder to make the case for maintenance, and why is it important, is to show how we could actually make companies more money, how we could run things more efficiently, save cost, and actually bring in more profits. KPIs. I'm curious about, when we get to the KPI part, what are you measuring for performance? I'm gonna pick a few that I think are kind of the most important for me. The real turnover problem. According to RealPage, a report from last year, we're looking at 46% resident turnover at site level. That's a significant number out there that comes with a cost. We all know that every vacancy creates a massive financial impact on an asset. And we're gonna run a few numbers. I'll run a few scenarios, so we're gonna show the numbers there. And then we're gonna talk about how maintenance quality, the work quality, directly impacts retention and turnover. I think probably this is kind of like becoming a cliche statement. The number one controllable expense in property management, it's maintenance, right? So if we're in control of the number one controllable expense, why don't we look at investing more in maintenance and like controlling that expense better, making it better? turnkey. Now, these numbers could be, played with in so many ways, right? Based on the research that I done, these are the numbers that I think, I won't say they were relevant in my research, right? But you could play with those numbers any way you want. But just with this scenario, just let's assume that, for the sake of the argument, these are the correct numbers, average, right? So I took the turn cost for every vacant at $2,100. Vacancy loss calculated based on an average vacancy of 27 days per unit comes up to $1,574. At a 5% cap rate, this equals to $73,482 in lost property value per turn. So one single vacancy is going to affect your property value by over $73,000. More numbers here. Scenario for a 300-unit property. And by the way, I'm seeing that most of you are taking pictures. I'm going to give you my address, my email address at the end of the presentation. You could have the entire presentation emailed to you, right? So just email me and say, I need a presentation email. I'm not sure if they do it like automatically, that they send the materials, but by all means, I'm going to give my address and yeah, please email me. So I'm not discouraging you to take pictures, right? But just know that it's all, the entire thing is available to you for free, of course. So I took here a different number, right? 15-day turn. We looked at average numbers, and let's just say that an average turn takes 15 days. How many of you have like 5 work days or 7 calendar day turn policy in your company? So just a very few. How about like other numbers than 7 calendar days? Anyone here? What's your policy? Like, what's the goal?
10 to 14 days.
10 to 14 days? Okay. Yeah. I'm used to the, yes, sir?
What was the question again?
What is your company policy regarding to turns? How many days you're allowed to spend on a turn in average? What's the goal?
Regular term is like 5 days, 5 to 7.
5 working days or 7 calendar days, right?
Yeah.
That's what I'm used to in my experience. But again, I'm here in 10 to 14, so yeah. So using the 15-day turn model, this comes up to 118,000, almost 119,000 annual loss in vacancy loss. A 5-day turn, it's only 39,646 annual loss. The difference between the two, if you were to, in average, keep it at 5-day turn, you will save like 79,291. And at a 4% cap rate, right? I use a different cap rate number here. It's almost $2 million in property value. So every single dollar that we spend or we don't spend or we save makes a huge impact into property value. And I think, this is another thing that I never been exposed to as a service manager of property. These numbers were never explained to me, right? I think it's extremely powerful if we make a case for our site level teams to show them how they impact, how much each dollar saved or spent impacts our property value. At the end of the day, that's what we're looking for ultimately, right? Because it's a business. Graphs they're showing the previous 2 slides. Data integrity. This is another point that I've been stressing for a number of years right now. Most property management systems allow for the users to corrupt the data. And I'm gonna explain. Let's just say that you're using Yardi, RealPage, or Entrada, right? The typical process that I know of is someone prints, maybe the service manager prints out the service requests and hands them to the team members, right? they divide them. Now the service technicians are completing them, writing their notes, and they're bringing back the completed work orders to the office. Typically, they end up on a leasing agent or a system manager desk for him or her to close. Now, that person, it's not invested in closing work orders. Their job is to sell apartments. Their job is to manage the property. Are they going to do it? Yes. Are they going to do it timely? I don't know about that. My experience says no. Are they going to put all the details in the notes that the technicians have written on a work order? No. Probably the most common situation you will find is that they hit the complete button, and then all you get on a back end when you want to pull a report, you're not going to find any details about a work order. So that allows for data to be corrupted. Now, the great news is that there's technology available that's being built out there that does not allow that. The system, it's basically assigning the service request, or a manager could assign service requests to their team members, and only that assigned, the person that's been assigned, can actually close. The only way they could close that service request is by taking pictures before and after, if that's a requirement, and writing detailed notes over completion. So that's data integrity. When you get to that point, plus, you know, time in and time out. So when you get that type of detail, that's when it starts getting better at getting numbers. And you can't really improve what you can measure. Having data integrity is the first step to be able to assess and quantify the number of man hours that are being spent on work, and then you could properly budget for your maintenance needs. Inefficiencies. They're holding our teams back. And I'm gonna look around the room and ask you to tell me what I'm missing right there, or if you see other things, or if you disagree. The manual dispatching of work orders, we're just talking about this. Classical model is service manager comes in the morning, they look at what's been printed, something has been missed, they basically do an audit. They print the rest out, they're separating them based on, you know, the team skill set and everything. Everybody comes in first thing in the morning, you get these tickets, you get these tickets, you get these tickets. Well, technology could eliminate 100% all of that. And this is how can technology eliminate the manual process. You have the ability with some maintenance platforms to create profiles for each one of your technicians. You know your technicians, right? You know what they're good at, what they're not so great at. And then you create a profile by outlining the strengths that they have. Let's just say that you have John, right? John is great at HVAC. He's also like okay with like electrical and plumbing. The system will know once you input that information that John should only get like those type of tickets, if that's what you want, if that's your goal, right? And then you have employees in staff that they're not knowledgeable or not certified, let's just say, you know, EPA, and then, you know, they can't really handle refrigerant. Well, you could program the system to not send that type of service request to them, right? So they send them to only the people that are qualified. So this eliminates a lot of manual work, and literally once you have that set up in a system, it's absolutely automated. Another thing that the system could do for you is you could set minimums for each technician. Let's just say that any given time, if there's a lot of work orders, the minimum number that they should have in their queue is like 5 work orders, right? So when they get down to 5 work orders assigned and they complete the next ticket, the system will automatically push the next one to them if there's enough work orders pending in a system, right? But what that does is that it eliminates the downtime. How many times have you seen your service team members hanging out around the maintenance shop waiting for the service manager to free themselves up to give them more work because they finish all the tasks that they were pending, right? So that's a thing that the automation resolves. Another one that I'm seeing as a big issue that holds the teams back is using the old style keys, key boxes and everything. Just going back and forth to and from the office, picking up keys, returning keys, could be eating hours of your technicians' time in a day. Ideally, a system like the hotel lock systems, to me, will show an incredible improvement in that time management situation. Not only that, but those systems, the platforms, give you the ability to actually check online and make sure you have logs of everybody that enter a certain location or not. With the keys, I can't even tell you how often I had to do key audits, and then on a 300-unit property, I had 60 keys missing, 60 key tags. That's $1 million worth of liabilities times 60. That's an incredible liability that you don't want to deal with. Of course, there's an upfront cost. Everything comes with a cost, but would you rather pay the cost upfront, or would you rather have a situation, where due to negligence, you allow the wrong person in someone's apartment and someone got hurt? All this stuff kind of compounds like compound interest. If you have all these tools at your disposal and they're properly deployed, I think that's where you would see a incredible increase in your team's efficiency. How does technology and AI changing the game? I heard Paul Rhodes earlier saying that he doesn't want more technology. He wants people to pick up the phone. I don't disagree there. I don't disagree at all. I just think that's. But I also think that this is not a this or that type of situation. It's kind of like all of the above. They're not opposite. They're not opposite, I guess, opinions or approaches. Paul's approach and my approach should go hand in hand. We should do all of the above instead picking on or the other. Predictive maintenance. There's a lot of great companies out there that deploy systems of sensors to tell you, for example, the temperature in a kitchen at any given time in an apartment. When the temperature goes above a certain level, you get notified, you get alerted, right? That there's possibly a fire in a kitchen. Moisture sensors that alert you when there's a leak in one of your wet areas, or maybe there's high levels of humidity, right? So that prevents, a flood or a mold situation. Dispatching and scheduling, we kind of covered that previously. Using AI technology, there's a lot of technology out there that uses AI engines behind scheduling. So you could automate a lot of your processes just by using those tools, those programs. How can AI augment the technician experience? Paul has mentioned, I keep going back to you. Paul has mentioned that we have 10 maintenance trainers in the entire country, kind of high level, that the industry could rely on. Paul, how many maintenance positions you say we have roughly? Between between current positions and open positions, what do you think is the workforce totally? Let's just say we have 23 million apartments totally, right? That's kind of a rough number.
23 millions, if I'm doing the math right,
230.
the standard.
230K? 230,000?
Yeah, it's standard 1 per 100, yeah.
Yeah, so that means that we have a trainer for 23,000 technicians in our industry. That's an unbelievable number. I mean, unbelievably low, right? Nobody could make that type of difference. Now, how do we get that down? To maybe a trainer per 1,000. It means that we got to increase the number of trainers by 23x. That's one thing. But then there's also something else that we could do, and again, it's not like a this or that situation. It's like using technology. And a great use of technology, that's being perfected is using technology that has built AI agents. An AI agent could actually be your virtual trainer, your training buddy, if you wish. You could train AI agents to know pretty much all the information that's available about troubleshooting in HVAC, everything that's available, that's readily available information. You could train them that way, and then you could deploy that type of technology at your technician's fingertips. So literally they could open up an app, and they could talk to the app and ask questions. Sometimes take a picture and say, I have this situation, it's a wiring diagram or a wiring issue. I don't know how to solve it. You'll be amazed, even ChatGPT could give you some very compelling answers in situations like that. Now, AI agents are very specifically trained in just maintenance, in what you want them to be trained, right? So they could tend to be even more precise than just a generic, ChatGPT type engine. Natural language word creation, voice to text. It's widely available. I could pull up my phone right now and I could talk to, into ChatGPT and ask it, give it like a prompt while I'm walking, while I'm talking to you. And then 20 minutes later, I could pull out my phone and just kind of like get a result of that, get something back. Of course, I could get it in seconds, but it's there when I need it. Real-time analytics for callbacks, turn times, and resident satisfaction. It goes back to the KPIs and what KPIs are important, right? And I think those are incredibly important KPIs. They show you current performance and what do you need to improve. Is centralization the answer? I think we just kind of covered that at the beginning. Smaller portfolios where you can afford to assign payroll, full-time payroll for certain assets, then the only solution right there is centralization. When you go to scale, you're gonna face this particular situation, and I think most ownership groups are kind of like overlooking the aspect. To me, a multifamily property that's 100 units or larger, it's a business that's already been scaled. Because if you compare a 100-unit property with a single family home, that's the single family home times 100, but they're all in one place, right? So that's a business that's already scaled. Most companies are struggling with their maintenance operations, right? And then if you struggle in your current situation with a person per 100 units, and you're saying now I'm gonna super scale my model, all you're going to do is to multiply the problems that you have to begin with through centralizing the services. Not to say that you're adding more challenges into the equation, like driving time, windshield, right? And paying your technicians for their time, for mileage, for gas, it's gotta be some sort of a compensation too. A few outcomes to aim for. Faster turns equals higher net operating income. Fewer callbacks, more capacity to do more things, right? Higher resident retention, stabilized revenue, and also increase too, right? Because you reduce the vacancy loss. Better data helps you make smarter decisions. And then AI plus other mobile tools available, it'll help you to be stronger when you execute. KPIs, what matters? First time completion rates. In other words, complete everything on a first trip, especially in single family, when you have driving involved. Every single time you add a trip to that, it becomes very, very costly for a company. Multifamilies too, but at least you have people in one place, so it's not that bad. But when you do that in single family, it could be crushing. It could be crushing you from a financial standpoint. Average turn time, of course, as most here are sharing kind of like the 5 to 7 unit day make-ready standard. Obviously, that's a huge KPI, and we show the numbers that how impactful they could be to the property value. Technician utilization. I had a conversation yesterday with someone that was saying he's a director of maintenance and he has a strong maintenance background in hospitality. And he was saying one thing that I'm observing at my sites is that I have a larger site that doesn't have a dedicated groundskeeper. So the technicians are spending a good amount of time like handling trash. They don't have a central location for trash. They have like smaller dumpsters, cleaning up around the dumpsters, pulling them in and ready for the waste management company to pick up. So that adds quickly, right? And when you pay a service technician or a service manager that makes, $25, $27 an hour, or $35 to $40 an hour as a service manager, this adds up pretty quickly. So the question becomes, is this the best use of their time, right? Someone that I've interviewed a few years back, a great internationally known sales trainer has a saying: if you don't have an assistant, you are the assistant. The same thing, the same exact thing applies to here. If you don't have a groundskeeper, you are the groundskeeper. So now the next question is that the best use of your time? Other KPIs, day to close work orders. Obviously, I'm familiar with like 24-hour goal completion time, 24 for emergencies, and 48 for regular service requests. Any other policies here? Well, first of all, like, who else is familiar, or like your company has that? 24 for emergencies, 24 and 48 for regular work orders? Anybody else differently?
For 5 for regular, but we have 17,000 doors.
Well, there's a thing right there. When you have an emergency, you have like 30 minutes or an hour to respond, but not to complete necessary.
24
So,
hours for emergency, 5 days is when we start incentivizing, then they get a better incentive. They get, on average, 3 days or less.
yeah. I added another one here, technology adoption rates, right? So what's technology good for when you deploy if it's not used? Right, so this could be another really good one to track. What's the technology adoption rate? And wrapping it up, maintenance is the silent driver for NOI. Poor processes, weak data, and outdated tools hold teams back. With the right KPI, strong data integrity, and AI-driven tools, we unlock millions in hidden value. We kind of show that math. Future of maintenance is not centralization, it's empower teams equipped with the right technology. I want to open the time that we have left to some Q&A. So I'll allow for you to ask some questions.
So I guess the question to the team and you is there anything else that you guys have seen incentivize techs because techs like money, and we're getting ready to do our 2026, incentives. So other than turn time, work order completion, and tech utilization, is there anything else that you've seen as a standard for technician incentives?
I'm not seeing it as a standard, but I'm seeing a very, very powerful tool. Public recognition. There's technology out there right now that you could use. Some of you might be familiar with what I'm talking about. This technology could set up various badges, right? So you could set up badges in your system that says, at 1,000 HVAC work orders completed, you're HVAC wizard. At overall 2,000 work orders completed, you're like a master of maintenance. You could create an unlimited number of badges and then make everybody aware that they exist, and you'll be amazed how competitive people could get, your employees could get. And in all honesty, that technology provides this at no cost to you, no extra cost. So it doesn't increase your cost per unit. If you already have that technology, it just provides that tool for you for free. And it's also an incredible way to create, to raise the level of pride. And they feel like, they're more appreciated that way. It's just a simple thing that, technology delivers for you for no extra cost.